Picture this. It's 1965. Pop music has a very specific set of rules. Songs are supposed to be short, sweet, perfect for AM radio. But then, one artist, pushed right to his breaking point, unleashes this 6-minute howl of pure anger and poetry. And it didn't just break the rules, it completely tore up the rulebook. This is the story of that song.
It all kicks off with this one question. And let me tell you, this is not some gentle inquiry. Oh no, this is a direct, snarling challenge aimed right at a fallen socialite and really at an entire generation. It's a question that's designed to cut right to the bone.
And there it is, the full chorus. You see, these weren't just lyrics on a page. They were basically a declaration of a new kind of reality. That feeling of being totally adrift, of having the rug pulled out from under you, that sentiment would just echo and echo through the culture for decades.
Okay, so who is on the receiving end of this verbal takedown? Well, the song builds this whole narrative around a character, a so-called Miss Lonely. And it is a brutal story of a fall from the absolute high life to the harsh, cold reality of the streets. Dylan paints this incredibly vivid picture of her past, right? I mean, this was a woman of serious privilege. We're talking the finest schools, all the high society glamour. She used to literally laugh at the outsiders, the people she thought were beneath her, and just casually toss them pocket change.
And man, the contrast now is just brutal. All that pride? Gone. The laughter has completely stopped. Now, she's the one on the outside looking in, totally invisible, pawning her diamond ring and just trying to figure out where her next meal is coming from. The tables have turned big time.
And that title, Like a Rolling Stone, it's absolutely crucial. And no, it has nothing to do with the band. It comes from that old proverb, a rolling stone gathers no moss. Now, that could mean being free and unattached, but in this song, it's something way darker. It means being utterly alone, no roots, no friends, no place to call home.
But here's the thing, this song wasn't just Dylan looking at somebody else's life. To really understand that raw anger, you have to look at the massive personal crisis Bob Dylan himself was going through. He was a superstar, sure, but he was completely trapped.
Just look at this timeline for a second. The rise is absolutely staggering. I mean, in just 4 years, he goes from a nobody to being called the messiah of the entire folk movement. But by May of '65, after this grueling tour of England, he was just done. Completely exhausted by the fame, the pressure, all of it.
And get this, he was only 24 years old. Can you imagine? The whole world had put this impossible weight on his shoulders, calling him the voice of a generation. He felt totally misunderstood and creatively suffocated. So much so that he was seriously thinking about just walking away from music for good.
But instead of quitting, Dylan funneled all of that anger and frustration into his typewriter. And what came pouring out? Well, it wasn't a song. Not at first anyway. It was just a torrent of pure, unfiltered rage.
20 pages. That's how this whole thing started. The origins of what would become one of the greatest songs ever written began as a 20-page rant. After coming back from that UK tour, Dylan basically locked himself in a hotel room and just let it all out, page after page of sarcastic, angry prose. Dylan's own words for it, he called it a long piece of vomit. Seriously. He later said it was all his hate, his desire for revenge, just focused on one single point. It was only when he finally sat down at a piano and started singing that line, "How does it feel?" that he realized what he had. It wasn't a poem, it was a song. So the writing of the song was pretty unconventional, right? Well, the recording session was maybe even crazier. It was a masterclass in chaotic, beautiful, accidental genius that all came together over 2 legendary days in the studio.
So how did this thing actually take shape? Well, Dylan first brings it to the studio musicians as a waltz. Yeah, a waltz. It just wasn't working. Then this brilliant guitarist, Mike Bloomfield, injects this raw blues rock energy into it. But the real magic ingredient, it came from a total unknown, a guy who wasn't even supposed to be playing. And by the end, they had morphed it into this groundbreaking 4/4 rock anthem.
Oh man, this is one of the best stories in all of music history. This guy Al Cooper, he was a 21-year-old guitarist who just showed up to watch the session. He sees the Hammond organ is just sitting there empty, so he sneaks over, sits down, and just starts playing along, even though he wasn't really an organist. And that riff he came up with, that sound that's just a little behind the beat, it became the song's signature hook. A legendary sound born from pure nerve. It's just incredible.
All right, so the song is recorded, it's an absolute masterpiece, but there was one huge glaring problem. It was over 6 minutes long, and in 1965, that was basically commercial suicide.
Let me put this in perspective for you. The entire music industry machine in 1965 was built around songs that were under 3 minutes long. Radio DJs needed them, jukeboxes were built for them, and the record label saw anything longer as a guaranteed flop. Dylan's song was more than double that. It wasn't a jingle, it was an epic. And you can probably guess what happened next. A major standoff. Columbia Records flat out refused to release it as a single. They told him to cut it down. And Dylan, in a move that would define his entire career, just said no. He would not compromise his art. So what happened? A copy got leaked to a DJ, it created this massive public demand, and the label had no choice but to release the whole thing. This was a huge victory, not just for Dylan, but for all artists. It showed that the audience was ready for something more.
So, what happened when they finally let it out into the world? Well, the song that was too long, too angry, and way too weird for the radio didn't just become a hit. It became an anthem that would cement its place at the very top of music history.
Against all odds, it was a massive commercial success. It shot straight to #2 in the United States, and the only thing that kept it from the top spot was help by the Beatles. I mean, come on. It was a top 10 hit all over the world, which proved that people were more than ready for something new, something real.
But, its legacy goes way beyond just the weekly charts. The song didn't just compete, it completely redefined what a pop song could even be. Lyrically, musically, culturally. It wasn't just aiming for #1 on the charts, it was aiming for #1 in a much, much bigger sense.
And if you need any more proof, here's the final word. Decades after its chaotic creation, Rolling Stone magazine, pretty much the definitive voice on this stuff, put together their list of the 500 greatest songs ever recorded. And right there at #1, well, there was no debate. It was Like a Rolling Stone.
So we end right back where we started. Dylan has performed this song live over 2,000 times, it's inspired countless artists, and completely changed the sound of music. But after all that time, after all that history, that one question just kind of hangs in the air, doesn't it? As powerful and as challenging as ever. How does it still feel?